Hi everybody, it's Amanda with Be Love Crochet. I'm coming to you today with a free tutorial on how to make this lovely textured headband. This is beginner friendly, however, if you're a beginner, I do recommend you knowing at least the basics before you start this project. This is crocheted using the moss stitch, and then I did a border in a chain 2 slip stitch fashion. In today's tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to make a 0 to 3 month. However, this is adjustable. All you need to know is the average head circumference for the size you want to make. And if you want to make one for yourself, you can just chain and then make sure the chain goes around your head. Or if you do have a measuring tape, I do recommend starting at the 1 inch and then going to however many inches the average size is for that age group, and then stopping there but making sure that you end on an even number. So for today's tutorial, what you'll need material wise is you'll need some yarn, of course. I'm using I Love This yarn in Sun Gold color. This yarn calls for a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. This is 100% acrylic. However, if you don't have a Hobby Lobby, which this is exclusive to, they also do have acrylic yarn in any Michaels, Joann's, or Walmart. I do recommend getting, if you're a beginner, getting a light color yarn, and also Red Heart yarn is fairly inexpensive and it's a good yarn to start to learn with. You'll need a crochet hook. I am doing a size 6 crochet hook just because I've been crocheting for about 4 years now, and I do crochet a little bit tighter, so I always go up a hook size. You'll need a darning needle, which you can find at Walmart, Joann's, or Michael's, and you'll need a pair of scissors. So go ahead and get all your supplies together, and then I'll meet right back here so we can start the tutorial. So to start this tutorial, you'll need to start with a slip knot. I do have a video on slip knots, single crochet, and chain and single crochet, but I'll show you really quickly. You take your tail end yarn, I hold it between those fingers, I wrap it around my thumb, then I take this yarn and push it through the loop. It kind of makes a pretzel, and then I grab this yarn and pull with my tail end. So for the 0 to 3 month headband, I'm going to start off with a chain 54. So to make a chain, we're going to take our hook, insert it into your loop, and then you're going to yarn over and pull your yarn through this space right here. That's your first chain. 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's how you make a chain, and they look like these little V's. So go ahead and make a chain of 54, and I will meet you right back to show you what your next step will be. So I went ahead and I made a chain of 54. This is what it looks like after you're done. So to start round 2, what you're going to do is you're not going to count this loop on your hook, but you're going to count down to your 4th chain and insert your hook and start there. So this is 1, 2, 3, and then this is your 4th stitch. So you're going to insert your hook through the top loop here, grab your yarn, pull up that loop. Now you have 2 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over and pull through both those loops and chain 1. So now what you need to do to repeat this down the whole row is you're going to skip this next stitch right to the stitch we just did and go into the stitch after that, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up that loop, and then you have 2 loops on your hook, and what you're going to do is yarn over again and pull through both those loops and chain 1. So you're going to repeat this down the whole row. Skip a stitch, single crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, single crochet, chain 1, down this whole row. So I'll go ahead and do a couple more of those on video here, and then I'll pause it and meet you at the end of the row. So insert your hook into that top loop there, yarn over, pull up a loop. You'll have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through both those loops, and chain 1. Skip this next stitch, go into this stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, you have 2, yarn over, pull through both, and chain 1. So go ahead and repeat that down this whole row, and I will meet you towards the end. Alright, so I went ahead and I repeated that pattern down the chain. So here you see that I have about 4 chains left. So here again, you're going to skip this stitch, you're going to go through this stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. Then you have 2 stitches on your hook, and single crochet, chain 1, skip this next stitch, and then you'll end this row on a single crochet. Now if you didn't end the row on a single crochet, then something went wrong. So what you'll need to do is remove your hook and just start over. So go ahead and rip out all your stitches unfortunately, and then you just need to make sure you get that even number. So to start round 3, what you're going to do is you're going to chain 2, and then in crochet, how we go back the other way is we simply turn our work. And that's how you start going back this way. So for round 3, and pretty much the repeat of the pattern, you're going to chain 2, you're going to see this single crochet from the previous row, and you're going to go into the chain 1 space, as we call it, from the previous row. Insert your hook, pull up some yarn, and then you have 2 loops and single crochet and chain 1. Same thing. Now this could be a little bit difficult to see, especially if you're a new beginner crocheter. This is called the moss stitch, and this is a little V. So you don't want to single crochet into there. You want to crochet, it kind of looks like a bar, it's not a V, and you want to go into that chain 1 space from the previous row. Pull up a loop, single crochet, chain 1. And if you get lost, what you can do is kind of pull your yarn apart, push these together. If it makes a V, you don't go into that stitch. You need to go into the stitch next to it. Skip this and go into that bar or chain 1 space. Single crochet, chain 1. So go ahead and do that down this whole row. I'll do a couple more on camera, and then I'll meet you back at the beginning, or I'm sorry, the end. And then I'll show you what to do there, and then that will be your repeat actually for the rest of the headband until you get to the width that you prefer. Skip this stitch because that's your V. If you push it together, you'll see it's a V, and then you're going into that chain 1 space. So go ahead and continue this down the row. I will meet you at the end to show you what you need to do then. Alright, so I went down the whole row and I did that repeat pattern. We're coming to the end here, and so I want to show you what I'm talking about, showing you what you need to do next, and this will be your repeat for the rest of the headband. So you're gonna, that's your V, you're gonna go in here, single crochet, chain 1, So this is where a lot of people end up getting wonky work when you're a beginner crochet, because it looks like you need to go somewhere, but then it doesn't really look like a stitch. So you know you don't go through this V-stitch. You are actually going to go right next to that V-stitch. If you need to, pull it apart to where you get a V, and you need to go into that chain 2 space from the previous row. Yarn over, pull up a loop. You have to do your single crochet, and from here we're actually going to chain 2 to start our next row. And to start round 3 through however many rows you want to do, you're going to chain your work, or churn your work, and you're going to repeat that same pattern. So you have your first single crochet here, and here it's a lot easier to tell where you kind of need to go. So you don't go through your V's, you go right next to them. Yarn over, pull up your loop, yarn over, pull through both, and chain 1. You skip this stitch, which is a V, and you go into this bar, yarn over, pull up your loop, and then do a single crochet. And you're going to repeat this down the whole row, and then when you get down to here and you get to your last stitch, this one might be a little bit easier, and from here on out to pull that apart and realize that you need to go into this chain 2 space. So go ahead and repeat this, rewind it if you need to, and I will meet you back here after I do 10 rows. That's as thick as I want it for the baby headband. One recommendation when you do this headband, the thicker you make it, the more bunched up it's going to be right here when you put this on, and it might look a little too bunched up or too big when you put it on your head. So I always make my headband thick but not too thick. So that's just a little tidbit, but you do it however you want to do it. I'm going to do 10 rows. For the toddler, I did 16 including the border. So you be the judge, and I will meet you back here to show you your next step after 10 rows. Well, after I do my 10 rows and you do however many you would like to do. All right, I'll see you in just a minute. So I went ahead and I did 10 rows. This is what it looks like. It definitely looks a lot different from when we started. So to go down this edging here, when you start crocheting, you just got to be your own judge on where to put your stitches to make it as even as possible. But the rule of thumb is you want to put as many single crochets on this edge here as you have rows. So I did 10 rows, so I want to try and put 10 single crochets along the side here. So here's my first hole. I'm going to go ahead and insert there, yarn over, pull up my loop. I have 2 loops, yarn over, and pull through both. So that's 1, and then you could go ahead, separate your work, just try and be as even as you can. My next hole and next stitch is right here. That's 2. My next stitch from there is right here. I'm going to insert through there. 3. And there's the next stitch. 4. 5. 6. 7. Here's my next stitch, 8. And then this will be 9, and then this little stitch here will be 10. 9. And then right here, it's kind of hard to see. Actually, let's see here. 10. Okay, so from here, we're going to turn our work and we're going to do down the side, and this is going to be our border. So how I did the border on this is I chained 2, 1, 2. I'm going to skip this small stitch here, is what I'm calling it, and then I'm going to go into that big space there, and I'm going to do a slip stitch. So how to do a slip stitch is you go through that hole, you pull up your loop like you're going to do a single crochet. But instead of yarning over and pulling through both loops, what you're going to do is grab onto this loop and pull it through that other loop on your hook. Chain 2, skip this little small stitch, and then go through this hole. Make another slip stitch and chain 2. Skip this little hole here, go through the big hole, through the big chain, slip stitch, chain 2. So go ahead and do that down this whole row. You're gonna skip that little chain, go through the big chain, slip stitch, slip stitch, chain 2. Repeat that, and I'll meet you at the other side to show you how I'm going to single crochet, which is the same thing that I showed you on the other side, and then I'll show you how to do the border on this side. Okay, so I went down this side and I did my border. Now we're meeting back at the other end here. And so if you did that single or slip stitch, chain 2, skip the next small stitch, you'll end here on this big stitch. So you're going to do the same thing. You're going to put your hook into that hole, bring up a loop, slip stitch. But here we're going to only chain 1 because we're going to turn our work. And if you want to go ahead and hold that, this is the beginning yarn from before. You're going to hold that over your work, and we're going to work over it. So here again, go ahead and pull on your loops to see where you can put your first single crochet. I'm going to pull these apart. So that's 1, here's 2. Here's 3 right in here. And like I said, if you're starting out, just go ahead and separate these chains. See where your next one is to this one. Here's 4. 5, 6, 7, 8. This is going to be 9, and then this last chain will be right here. So go into this stitch. And now you can let your tail kind of loose because we already crocheted over that. And then our 10th stitch will be right in here. You're going to chain 2. And then you're going to do that border that we did on the bottom. You're going to do it on the top now. So we just chained 2. And we're going to go into this first stitch right here next to our V. And make a slip stitch. This one's a little bit harder because you got to really work it through, and sometimes you get some splitting on your hook when you do that, when it's so tight. And then you're going to chain 2, and then your next one is going to be right next to that V. So essentially you're just going into the chain 1 space next to the V's for this one. It's a little bit different than the bottom. So you skip that next V and you go into that little bar there, slip stitch, chain 2, go right next to that V into the bar there, slip stitch, chain 2. So go ahead and repeat that. That's kind of what it's looking like. And then I'll meet you at the other side and show you how you are going to attach this end to this other end. All right, everybody, so I went ahead and I went down the row and I did that chain 2 slip stitch to make that border. So what we're going to do is I went into that last V-stitch there. I did my slip stitch. I'm going to chain 2 and then slip stitch into this first of my single crochet on the side. Sometimes that's hard to get into, I'm sorry. Okay. So how I'm going to attach this is you're going to turn your wrong sides together, and how to figure that out if you're new. The right sides you're going to have this pretty V going across the top. The wrong sides, it's going to look much different. You're not going to have that V. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to put these two sides together. Take out your hook, if you can. And you're going to find your first stitch, which is right here. You're going to insert your hook into that first stitch. You're going to take your other side and you're going to insert where you have your knot hanging on. Sometimes it's hard to get both those on there. You want to go through 2 loops, not 3. And then what I do is I just put that loop back on my hook and I tighten it. So after you do that, you're going to pull your loop through both those loops. I usually chain 1 just to secure it a little bit more, and then I go back through that loop. I'm sure there's an easier way to do this, but this is just how I always do it. And then I make a single crochet. That's how I do the end there. Now you're going to go into your next stitch. You're going to find your next stitch on your other side, go through both of those, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then go through both loops for a single crochet. Find your next one on your other side, get your yarn, and single crochet. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to go down this whole side there, do the same thing, make sure you're going through the even chains here and single crocheting to attach your other end to your other end. So go ahead and finish, and I will meet you back up the top and I'll show you your next step, and we're almost finished. Yay! Okay, I'm kind of towards the end here, and this is one of my last loops here. You could see that hole. And if you look on your other side, you got your other V. Same thing, you're going to insert. You have 4 V's on your stitch almost, or 2 V's, I'm sorry. You're going to pull up, single crochet, and then you still have one last V. If you turn here, you see you have one here and one here. You're going to go through both those. This one's a little bit harder to go through. Sometimes you have to kind of work it through with your fingers to make sure you go through both those loops. And then go through this one. Get both those loops on there. Sorry, it's not wanting to go on. And then single crochet. So now we've attached both of our ends together, and that's what it looks like. It's a little circle. It's definitely smaller. So to end this is what you're going to need to do is you're going to take your yarn and get a pretty good substantial amount of yarn, not too much but not too little, and then you're going to cut it. And then you're going to take this hook and pull on that yarn all the way through. and then you're just gonna pull on that yarn. And what that does is it just secures the yarn. So now what we're gonna focus on is we're gonna end up, this is what it looks like from the outside. As you can see, it's much smaller than the other one, but it pretty much the same concept. So what we're gonna do is I just kind of secure this guy on there because we're gonna be taking our other yarn and working over it. So with this yarn that I have attached still right here, I'm going to put it to the outside. What we're going to do is just kind of scrunch up our work till it looks like this. Till it kind of looks like the turban. We're going to take this yarn and we're going to just go ahead and wrap it around. And that's all you do, is you just wrap it around to make that little knot effect. Try and get it even, kind of go over and stuff like that. So continue to do that for a few more times. You don't want to get it too thick because then it just, it gets too thick on your head and it can be uncomfortable. So go ahead and finish your knot, and then I'll meet you back here and show you how I'm going to finish this. All right, everyone, so I went ahead and I did this as thick as I want it. So now what you're going to do is you're going to make sure you turn your work inside out, and you have this little tail here from the row before. And what I do is I tie these two together. Don't tie it too tight. With me, when I do crochet, I literally try to not weave in ends. So really you don't need the darning needle for this. And then you just clip that. I'm going to clip it a little bit closer. And that's it. That is the pattern. It's fairly simple and very nice to make. It makes a cute little headband, and it's perfect for a little gift. It's perfect for a beginner. So I'm going to have more tutorials coming, of course, to make cute little things like this. Go ahead and hit the subscribe buttons. Any suggestions or anything you'd like to see, just let me know. Thank you. Bye.